We're back, baby. Horns up, Talking Texas podcast. Victory Monday. I mean, how sweet. Just like, honestly, 17-7. I think a lot of people are acknowledging this. Doesn't tell the full story of what that game was. Because quite frankly, it could have been 31-0, and we all know that. Had Quinn not thrown that pick six, the only points they were able to put up on the board, that fumble again in the same spot in the red zone, we're getting a couple points. And if Burt, doesn't miss that field goal, like there were a lot of points left on the board for the Longhorns. Outside of that, this was our buddies Blake Ruffino and Joe DeLeon put out a video saying one of the reasons they felt the Texas Longhorns were going to lose because they were the quote unquote less physical team, which I quite frankly don't know how you measure that other than the way in which you could control the line of scrimmage running the football and the stops you get at the line of scrimmage, to which Trey Wisner, one of the many heroes of the game, one of the many amazing stories of the game as far as players go. You could lump in Michael Taft and his journey and now to becoming probably a professional football player at the next level. Trevor Gooseby coming in for our what should be top 10 pick offensive left tackle. Kelvin Banks not missing a beat, being one of the highest graded pass blocking offensive tackles of the weekend. And then Trey Wisner, who was our fourth running back going into the year, behind Baxter, behind Blue, behind Gibson, quite frankly.
Yeah. Let's say third. Let's be generous to anyone who's a naysayer and say he's third because he got snaps last year, got in the end zone last year. Sure. Either way, third string running back.
And then you have on the defensive side, probably the two biggest plays of the game. Elko going for it early on fourth down in our red zone. We get the stop. And then at the end of the game to cut the lead to 3 when it's 17-7, Burke untouched gets in the backfield and gets a fantastic stop. And that, to me, you want to say the other team's more physical. I just point to the point of attack and say not no way, not no how.
Yeah, I do think I think Blake Ruffino made the claim. I mean, they pick every game in college football every week, or at least the ones that people are paying attention to, and they make their picks on them. Ruffino said, and I'll back him up a little bit here, that he wasn't confident about this pick. And I understand why. I don't know how anyone could have confidently picked Texas A&M in this game if they have watched Texas's defense this entire year. And once again, the Texas defense answered the call, demonstrated that they are the best defense in the country statistically and with the eye test. All three phases, they show up to play. Makuba made hits. Taff, obviously, with the interception, got his hands on another ball. Malik Muhammad had a couple of plays. Jelani McDonald, who is playing for Derek Williams, who was our starting safety, got involved on some plays. Leona Tafau in the backfield, constantly making plays on the ball. David Benda had a really nice play. Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons, we've talked enough about them. But you didn't even say my favorite player in the entire game. I feel the Vern, Josh.
I don't want to take all the guys.
Vernon Broughton,
yes,
dominated
game of his life.
And our DT, who everyone's been talking about, and rightly so, is Alfred Collins. And Alfred Collins took up a lot of space in this game, but Vernon Broughton was the guy that took advantage of the matchups, got into the backfield, blew up run plays, made Marcel Reed's job really, really tough, was everywhere on this football field, and dominated that line of scrimmage. And he really set the tone. I mean, he and Trey Wisner, again, both guys, you want to talk about why this team is going to the SEC championship and why they were going to the college football playoff no matter what the results were in Kyle Field and College Station on this past Saturday night. It's because the depth and the focus that our coaches have instilled in these players and the buy-in that we saw with Cedric Baxter's written note as to why he wants to be out there playing for his team right now, that these guys play together, they play to win, they have a common goal, and they will not delineate from that path. And you saw that. And this, to me, was the most complete game that we have played, even though it still wasn't perfect on the offensive side. And we can talk about some of the the downfalls there, and you mentioned a couple of them already, but our team's energy and effort and composure, playing in a really tough place to play, a loud place to play. I know it was wacky that they had the fight song words on the screen
That
subtitled.
was I texted y'all. That was insane.
I've never seen that before. I'm sure someone could dig up something where they've put the words on the screen before, but I haven't seen it recently. And that's a neutral broadcast. And Herbie has a lot of love for Marcel Reed because he has some connections with him and the high school that he played for. I certainly heard that throughout the telecast. But at the end of the day, no one was saying that we were lucky to get this game. They were saying Texas did exactly what they thought they were going to do and what they knew they were capable of doing and dominated this football game. And it starts at the line of scrimmage.
And I give Elko credit. Like, he went for it early, like made gutsy calls. Like, he's the defensive minded guy, quite frankly. It's Colin Klein on the offense, and they were not able to get any semblance of a pass game going. Reed ran for 60 yards on 14 carries, but Daniels was 13 for 21. We absolutely stuffed their running back. You bring up the brotherhood of CJ Baxter. I pulled up this tweet right here. PFF tweeted out 35 touches, 207 total yards for Contravion Wisner against Texas A&M. Someone retweeted, he's just on a heater right now. Shrug and shock emoji. You want to guess which player that was that tweeted that?
Jonathan Brooks?
No, current player. Close
okay.
up.
But I love how much our alums support those guys. Probably Jaden Blue.
Yeah. Blue. Like, that's it. That's why we're winning. That's it right there. Jaden Blue not getting the touches. Any other running back would be transfer portal. No, Jaden Blue's like, yeah, my guy's just on a heater right now. We're winning football games. That's all that matters. When my number's called, I'm going to come and do my thing. Yep. And by the way, one thing the Jake Ellinger sign, if you don't think that was so early in the day, if you don't think the players saw that, first of all the former players, Jameson, Roshan Johnson tweeting about it, and then Michael Taff at the end of the game in the post game talking about it for over a minute. You don't think the players saw that and that was just the icing on the cake for them to come in there and do some damage and hit somebody? Like, it's just too far. And some of the gripes the Aggie fans have, look, this team brought in Jimbo Fisher. They had an all-time recruiting class, and he didn't capitalize, and he got fired. Mike Elko comes in. It could be a potential down year. They lose the opener against Notre Dame at home. They have to make a quarterback switch. They still go 8-4 in the SEC. They still have a big win against LSU. It's not a bad year for A&M. I know they're always 8-4. They're always 8-4. We come in and we do damage in year one. Fine. I felt Elko defensively called a good game. Like,
I thought their guys were really active. I thought they were aggressive, especially early in the first half. I mean, our offensive line and our execution was just top tier, and we beat them, step for step. But that team did not bend over. That team did not bowl over.
And they held for as dominant as we were. We doubled their yardage. They held us to 17 points. Like, I have to tip my cap to Elko, who's the defensive-minded guy there. It's just one thing I will say is, like, one Aggie fan pointed out, like, some of them were hilarious. Some of one of the best one that we love was, like, you bring in 3 5-star recruits, pay for their tickets only for them to go to the University of Texas. Unbelievable. Yeah. Wanting to leave the SEC for the Big Ten is hilarious. But someone's like, we're so obsessed with beating Texas. You raise such a crazy expectation. It's all about beating the Longhorns. Everything's about Texas. It really is. From the horns down to sing the fight song about us when we don't play them. It's just all about beating Texas. That you raise this crazy expectation that when you don't meet it or are not able to meet it, it's just a complete pitfall. And this team, when push comes to shove on paper, they're not in the same class as us. And they weren't in the same class as us at any point in the season.
No. I mean, Trevor Gooseby comes into this game. It was mentioned on the telecast, and I appreciate this, that our offensive line, all 5 of those guys, have started every single game. So Banks going down. Yes, guys have gotten banged up in the middle of a game. Someone's come in. Gooseby's already come in and played snaps this season multiple times. But they had those 5 guys started game in, game out. That consistency at the line of scrimmage is crucial. Not a lot of teams in college football can say the same about their units. Not a lot of teams in college football have wanted to stick with the same 5 guys for the entire season too, whether they were healthy or not as well. But Gooseby
Yeah.
comes in, there's an edge in Texas A&M. We talked about this with Jay Kubanak last week, named Nick Scorton, who is going to be a first-round pick. Now, I don't know where he's going to get picked in the first round, and part of that is because I didn't know where he was against the Texas Longhorns.
I mean, he did not do the same level of damage as Williams or Jalen Walker or
No.
Abdul Carter did for Penn State. Not against us, but this weekend.
To further your point, in defense of Nick Scorton, they don't have the depth that Texas has on the defensive line, which is why I'm here praising Vernon Broughton, but still Alfred Collins, but Ethan Burke made a play, but Colin Simmons made a play, but Anthony Hill made a play, but Barron Sorrell made a play. Even after he had that early flag, he turned around and he made a play.
And Trey Moore
made a heroic play at the end of the game. That is depth that A&M doesn't have, that Texas has demonstrated throughout the entire season. Trey Moore, a guy that led his conference in sacks, who then goes over to the Texas Longhorns, isn't even playing every down, is playing quote-unquote limited snaps.
He's been really good, though.
When he's out there, he makes a massive difference. And he's able to have that energy when he's out there and have gas in the tank because he doesn't have to go, first down, second down, third down every single defensive possession. And that's a luxury that not a lot of teams have. That's one that we have that A&M doesn't. So there's the disparity of talent right there on the defensive side. And again, I mentioned Jelani McDonald. That's a safety that's not supposed to be starting, but he stepped in. He's been incredible. Jalen Gilbo, although he had a defensive encroachment and penalty, he's always active and he's given us great reps this entire season. He's a heavy hitter for sure.
Leona Lafau was incredible.
He was great.
Great.
They don't have that same level of depth, and they certainly, they didn't have their RB1, but neither did we. And our guy ran the ball 35 times.
I mean, he had 35 touches. It was crazy. He was the thing is with Wisner, everything he did, every carry, the fight for yards, the slinking around, the snaking through tackles, the pushing forward, the falling, it was just like
his contact balance,
just going through. His footwork was incredible. And you know what? We're talking about the offensive line. I got to give a shout out for my fellow New Yorker from Queens. Coached the offensive line at CW Post on Long Island. Coached at Hofstra on Long Island. We don't cuss a lot on this show, but I have to say, motherfucking Kyle Flood.
Yeah.
Motherfucking Kyle fucking Flood, dude. He absolutely, he's pivotal is an understatement to what he is to this program. Kyle Flood has done such a masterful job. I mean, Gooseby's numbers called. He comes in, we don't miss a beat. He was a beast.
No,
he was a beast. Everyone for like the first couple minutes, like, oh, well, how's Banks? And everyone's like, all right, we'll just let him rest, get him ready for next week. We have this kid.
Yeah, I think it's not lost on me small moments that happen throughout this game that speak volumes. And one of them is Gooseby goes in, and within the first 3 snaps of him going in, I wish I could remember whether it was the exact first snap that he played. We ran a zone off tackle run left on Trevor Gooseby's side. As soon as he gets put in, if you want to talk about confidence that an offensive line coach and a head coach, Steve Sarkisian, who calls the plays, having a guy in Trevor Gooseby, that shows you everything you need to know. Our starting left tackle, who's going to be a top 10 pick, goes out, and we say, let's run left and show them that we are not afraid, that our backups are better than their ones. And that's exactly what we did. And I think Wisner got 8 or 9 yards on that play. I mean, he got 8 or 9 yards every single time he touched the ball. So why wouldn't you keep running? And getting and just the nuance of how Sarkisian has handled this Quinn Ewers injury, sometimes not his best play, coming back from injury, bringing Arch in for this. We're all calling it the 16-wheeler package now. For first touch, he goes to the end zone, he tucks it and runs. That guy's ready to play. Tough, such a tough kid. But he started 3 games this season. And then he gets the starting job yanked from him, but he's ready to go in a primetime game. To me, that just shows how flawless our coaching has been and how much of an understanding these players have to know
Did you
that
see
there
how
is a
hyped they were on the sideline for him?
he just oozes swag. I mean, if you've seen the ESPN like sideline cam of that, he's
Louisiana thug,
wrapping
dude.
up all the
Yeah,
guys.
he's sick.
Everybody's coming up to him, and then he looks at the camera for a half second, and
He's a beast, dude.
I'm
He's
like,
a money-making
this
machine.
guy's got the presence. He does, and he's a little more handsome than Eli, and I think that'll take him a long way too. I think I'm sure it is on the 40 acres.
The New York Giants gotta take whoever this year,
Oh, literally
suck
during the
one more
game,
year.
everyone's like, we can't take QB this year. We have to wait for
I have to
Arch.
wait. I mean, Arch Manning has to be a New York Giant if you're the Giants. Like, you have to wait at this point. Dable is like could lame duck it. I don't know, but that has to be the
Boy,
case.
you're gonna have to compete with the New Orleans Saints. Probably you're gonna have
No,
to compete.
God, yeah, 100%. Oh, 100. They're angling for him too.
We'll see where the Cowboys are.
Yeah.
Like
everyone's gonna want this kid. I mean, again, losing with swag. Look, here's what I was. Another thing, two guys we never talk about. Cole Hudson. We never talk. We never talk about. We talk about majors a little bit. We never talk about Hayden Connor and Cole Hudson. Cole Hudson and Hayden Connor are two guards. Have not been penalized. I think both of them in 5 weeks.
I love that. And they're not
all the movement they have to do with all the
that's a great call out. Like, they swing out there. I mean, I saw one play where Cole Hudson was 11 yards up the field, and I just sometimes I just like watching big boys run like that. Jake Majors, there was one block that he missed on Arch's second run that he had.
He's just not a pro. Which is evident for the other four guys who probably are.
But clearly,
Williams and Banks are pros.
Yeah, of course. But the great thing about Majors is he's clearly a vocal leader in the locker room. You talked about Sam's younger brother, Jake Ellinger, at the beginning of this program. That's a guy that Jake Majors knew real well, and I know he was playing for him out there. He at times is undisciplined, and I still felt that way in this game. But that's a part of the package, and you have to have a guy out there, as we saw in that Jags game yesterday on Sunday. You have to have an offensive lineman who takes care of his own and takes care of his guys, and that's what Jake Majors does for us. And I love that about him always.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, Jake Majors is like, look, again, he's not Kelvin Banks, but he's like the heart and soul of this offensive line. He's the upperclassman. He's the guy there. He's the captain. Like that's it. Like this team is just playing with such great unity. Like, I wish we didn't start slow again. We have to play Georgia again, and that's kind of daunting that with our slow start. But Quinn threw some of his best balls of the year, quite frankly, at certain points. Big throws on a dime. And if you're Sark and you've played Georgia once already, you had it at home in the bright lights. It was a moment almost too big in the first half. We now go to Atlanta, which is kind of a road game, quite frankly.
Sure.
Because of, distance.
Hey, we traveled better than I thought we were going to Kyle Field. We're going to do the same to Atlanta.
Yeah, we'll be fine. I just think that, look, we'll be right now and we could start getting to CFP. If we win, we're the 2 seed, presuming that Oregon beats Penn State, which I think is likely.
I think so too.
So we'll probably be the 2 seed. At worst, we'll be the 6 seed if we lose to Georgia.
Yeah.
Still have a home game.
Well, let's be honest about, if there's nothing else we need to talk about in the Aggies game, I'll defend quickly a couple of other things before we go into the Georgia game. That second field goal for Burt was tough. It's a tough look. I mean, it was gross off the foot, and it was a clean snap, it's a clean hold. You can't pull it that far wide to the right. But he hit that 28-yarder early. I have a feeling if we had gotten stopped on the possession where we threw that pick and also where Quinn got stripped as he was sliding, that Burt would have knocked those close ones in, which is important to know that we can at least get points against quality defenses. Looking forward to the Georgia game.
Yeah.
A couple of other, I agree. I think Gunnar Helm is an absolute beast. There's no reason why he should have caught that ball, but he did. On that 3-for-3, Quinn was perfect drive. He wasn't perfect, but Gunnar Helm made him look perfect. Quinn beautifully dropped that ball into Matthew Golden. I think he and Isaiah Bond still need to kind of connect a little bit because there was clearly some miscommunications there. I will say I want to ask this to you because quarterbacks don't catch a lot of flack, especially ones of Quinn's size and lack of mobility to get them out of pocket and throw on the run. They get defense from other quarterbacks and other media personalities when there's line of scrimmage tips. I'm with that because I always like protecting quarterbacks and I always like protecting how we talk about them. But at a certain point, when I've seen it 3 times a game, every single game,
He gets tipped a lot.
he gets tipped more than he gets tipped so much now at this point that to me, it's not lucky by the defense. And it's the arm angle. I mean, he's a sidearm thrower. Like he
He's
just
also
is.
not leaving he's also staying in the pocket. So he's
I
more
just think he just has to account for that at a certain point when it's three deflections a game at the line of scrimmage. You have to start accounting for that.
Well,
And
the one that got picked got tipped, no?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, by a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I loved on the flip side of that, especially going against Georgia, something he did not demonstrate in that game. He did not tuck and run, and he did do that against the Aggies. He totally could have scored on that one run, but he got a little scared.
I mean, if that's 16, that's going in.
Yeah.
That's 16 that's going in. But good for Quinn. Like, that was huge.
Just when he saw, I can't remember whatever wide receiver it was on the outside, who had good leverage and position on the guy, and all he had to do was find the sideline. He took like one step to the left, and Quinn goes, "Oh my God," and goes out of bounds. But he's protecting himself. He's still hurt, and he gritted that one run out late in the game in the second half, where he ran it up the right sideline. The slide, that's just, he's banged up and he's not a runner, and that gives guys an opportunity to make a play before you get down on the ground. And that Texas A&M player made a hell of a play. And that's just kind of what it is. But we're going to see Arch in this game. I want to see Arch in this game at certain points. It's going to be the same recipe. But ultimately, Josh, this game doesn't matter that much.
No, it does. What do you mean? It doesn't matter that much.
Macro level, not Texas Longhorn hat on. I want the bye, and I want to beat Georgia.
You want the bye. You want to win the SEC championship. It matters a ton.
Of course. But both these teams are going to the college football playoff.
In terms of like, hey, can we make a run for the championship? Yes, we're going. But in terms of like first year SEC, by the way, you want to beat this team who came into your house and embarrassed you in the first half.
I mean, you beat this team, then it's 1-1 against it's the 1-1. It's the only team that's beaten you.
This is the team to beat. I don't care about their offensive down year. I don't care about Carson Beck losing draft stock. This defense, and when this team is at full, I don't care about them playing.
Do you think that there will be the same level of desperation that the A&M Texas game had? It's just not the same as the first time the rivalry's back from 13 years. Like, we've played this team before.
I think this is a big moment I think it's a bigger moment for Sark than necessarily the players.
Or the two teams.
If you are Sark and you're tabbed as this offensive genius, which I believe we all think he is, and you're tabbed as this top tier head coach, and you're tabbed as the long-term future, which obviously he is, of this program, that you are the face of the program.
Yep.
Players will come and go. You are the face of this program. And you're tabbed as this genius head coach, which we all want to believe he is. You're coming at the king. You get a second shot at the king. And if you're coming at the current king in the SEC with Saban gone for a second time, you best not miss. And he has Kirby Smart, who dominated him in the first half. Sark adjusted really well in the second half of that Georgia game. Kirby Smart dominated Sark and our team in the first half. You are Coach Sark. This is your chance at redemption. This is your chance to make your adjustments. This is your chance to get a second shot in this chess match that you can win and show how you adjust on a bigger stage. This game means more. It's the SEC championship. If you can adjust and you could take down Kirby Smart in Georgia, who squeaked by Georgia Tech, a win's a win, but they squeaked by Georgia Tech. If you can make your adjustments and call a good game and trust your defense to get some turnovers on Carson Beck, who's looked a little better and make things a little tough for them, then you've taken the crown.
It's also year one, no Saban, right? Who both these guys coached under. Both have a relationship with Nick, a close one at that. And 2022, Georgia beats Alabama, right, in the national championship, the college football final. But they played them 3 times that year. They won in the regular season,
Lost SEC championship.
lost in the SEC championship.
Bryce Young, right?
Yes. And then they win in the college football final. I don't believe that Georgia, under Kirby Smart, has won an SEC championship against Nick Saban at Alabama. You could stat check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's true. And if that's the case, to be able to do this in year one for Sark, for this Texas football program, it's immense. What that means sending a message, or right, what it means sending a message to the rest of the SEC, what it means sending a message to the rest of college football, to every recruit who was at that Texas A&M game or otherwise, the guy that just flipped back to Florida. Yes, Texas Tech, Micah Hudson, the wide receiver who's now in the portal. Other guys, Georgia's defensive back who's now in the portal. All those guys, it's sending a message to them. And one other thing that we didn't mention about Texas A&M, I agree with you what you said at the beginning. Like, they don't need to be freaking out. If you're a Texas A&M football fan right now, like, you just didn't have the same level of talent. I mean, you were 8-4. Like, you were playing for the SEC championship in rivalry week against the number 2 team in the country. Like, what more could you really ask for? Like, that's year one of a head coach. It's really hard.
That's a reasonable outlook. They're not reasonable people.
No, clearly. I know. But like, we're in such a good position, and we need to finish the job in the SEC championship and win that game. And to go back-to-back conference titles after a conference flip. And look, we're here, and Oregon might do the exact same thing, although they did lose to Washington in the conference title game in the Pac-12 championship. But still, even to be competing at that level in the Pac-12 and then to go to the Big Ten and both these teams playing for that, I mean, it's tremendous. Arizona State doing the same thing, right? Like these programs, SMU doing the same thing. Like these programs just went over to new conferences and have taken care of business and put themselves.
We could have 4 first-year teams in the conference be conference champions. That's crazy.
And can I be honest with you? I think we will. I think
SMU,
we will.
us, Arizona. I mean, I think Arizona State's winning that game. I'm most confident in Arizona State, quite frankly.
I think I'm most confident in
Oregon,
but
yeah, I mean, it's James Franklin. You know he's not going to win the game. But Arizona State, I mean, Arizona State's kind of nice. I'm not saying they're going to go on a run, but that Dillingham's a good young coach. Their running back Scatabo is nice.
Scatabo, man.
They're a legit team.